Howdy, howdy, howdy. How's everybody doing tonight? I see Greg's over in the chat. Well, he retracted. He's Greg's here anyway. Probably going to be running a little light tonight. As y'all can see, this is going to be the Johnny Mall Train Talk Show. I was telling everybody last week that we had to do a flip-flop this week. That my show is going to be on Tuesday night, and the Fine Scale show would be on the Thursday night of this week, June 14th. So we could accommodate the guest that's going to be on the show. And also the show Thursday night will be at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern time. It will not be the 10 o'clock show like normal. So those people don't stay up late like I do. So we're going to air it an hour early Thursday night. So, well, we got Brian over there now and John. How y'all doing? And let's go ahead and see what all we got going anyway. Should have got the book out earlier. Alrighty, like I said, Thursday night's going to be the Fine Scale show. Miles Hell's bringing the guest in for that show. They're going to be talking about lighting your layout with LEDs. That'll be interesting. We got another show on June the 19th. I think Bill is really getting into his new show here. On June the 19th, we're going to have Who is Big Bill Talking To? And he's going to have Ron Perry on the show. So that ought to be interesting. Ron's from up in Canada. He's another scale modeler. It's one of his websites. He does scratch bills and does a really nice job. Then on June the 20th, we've got Into the Locomotive Shop with Joe Desmond and Bill again. And of course on the 21st will be my show. Then June the 26th, to finish out the month on most of the shows, will be Who is Big Bill Talking To again? That is going to be the O-Scale show. 3-rail O-Scale. So Bill's got a couple of guests coming on that are 3-railers. So that ought to be interesting. BNSF 1982. How you doing? As usual, Andy's running a little late, but he said he'll be here. Yeah, that's okay. He's paying he's help paying my Social Security, so I'm not going to complain or dock him for that. But anyhow, let me see if I can do something here. Where was this? That didn't come up right. Maybe it was the Facebook page. Yes, it was. Let's go over here to Facebook and see what's going on here. Well, here, I'll just do a screen share. And we'll play story time and I'll read it off to you. Quit doing that. Alright, obviously screen share doesn't want to work. Anyway, in the news, this was posted 3 hours ago from Gino Sharp. He said, well, folks, I have concluded that the only real way to make money these days is to be upset at something. So I have made the command decision to become a paid protester. For the following prices, I will come and protest your cause. Morning time before 10 a.m. 1 fried egg sandwich, hash browns, and unlimited coffee. Mid-morning, 1 pork barbecue sandwich, hot sauce, extra large fry, homemade peach cobbler, and a diet beverage. After lunch, hamburger steak, corn on the cob, and some smashed taters and a Crown and Coke. You pay the intox fines. And for those who don't understand Southern too well, that's intoxication fines. He said, I look forward to being the voice of your proposals for purpose. Let's see, who else we got going on here on Facebook in our channel? Where was it? AJ Clypass posted something here. Here it is. AJ posted a picture of a wedding bouquet of flowers and dropped a big heavy hint as who that was for. Seems like his mother is getting married again, so say congratulations and a lot of more happy years. How you doing, Andy?
Hey, brother. How are you?
Not bad. Just kind of going through, see what's going on Facebook, eat up a little time. Steve Montgomery's working on something.
Yeah, I haven't been doing a good job of keeping up with Facebook lately. Well, I don't do a great job keeping up with Facebook in general. Don't catch it very often, but in our community, normally I can go catch up, go read back and stuff, but not lately.
Yeah, I'll have to admit I don't keep up with it too much myself.
I love technology, and I use Facebook sparingly. I have issues with Facebook, but it's the best place for modern railroad communities, for communities and specific groups. Now, forums are great, and I probably spend more time reading things like on MRH's forums than anywhere. But for groups of people who are specifically interested in modeling some esoteric branch line of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, Facebook's got a group for that.
Yeah. So, I don't see much of anything else going on, but anybody out there in the chat got any kind of nonsense, foolishness going on here?
Oh, foolishness? There's got to be foolishness. Surely.
Oh, there's Joe, Central Jersey Conrail in scale.
And yes, Ralph.
Maybe not lonely as much as a fish out of water, being this isn't my normal night for doing my show.
No, I remembered it. I was already home. It just took me a minute to get it together because I wasn't keeping up with what time it was. I haven't been home long anyway.
Yeah, Ralph want to know what you're working on. He sees you flip-flopping a bunch of stuff around.
Oh, I have a few pieces of road bed where segments divide at different elevations, and that's a little bit of a hard contraption. So I make up the road bed, all my road bed, of course. Everybody's seen mine knows I make up it's sectional track work built on hole with open ties. But so I have to make up this division where they split. After this, they can be two separate pieces of road bed without any concern. And with my riser system that I make out of styrofoam with foam core. But that's the road bed, foam core on the bottom, homocycle on top, and then I divide it. I put some supports on, glue some supports on, some small material lumber like I have here, and then I'll carve that out a little bit, fill it in with some, and I use paper mache, that's what this is, composite paper glued together. So I use straight paper mache to fill these gaps in, so you keep all the sound properties of it. I've even used some paper mache to fill in between the the ties and such to bring the mud level up higher. Again, it keeps the sound deadening properties. So my problem, I've argued with people about cork numerous times. My problem with cork is fine until you soak it with glue. When you soak it with glue, the cork gets hard. And cork layouts, cork supported railroads are just about always quite loud. Maybe better than being directly on the plywood, but it's negligible. Homosote, that's exactly what it was designed for. It is not some casual second task that model railroaders have found for it. It was designed as sound deadening material. So, yeah, I know it's a pain to work with. It's the only old-fashioned, so to speak, old-fashioned thing I do on my layout. Everything else I've cobbled together with some different way of thinking on it, but not Homosote. I have not found a substitute for that, except now that stuff Ralph uses. I can't remember what that's actually supposed to be used for.
Oh, you're talking about the foam tape. That was pipe wrapping.
That's it. Yeah, pipe insulation. That's what it was.
Yeah.
If you're for my hidden trackage, for trackage I'm not handling, for trackage I'm not as sensitive about the sound on. Like I said, like on my Helix or the staging, I will probably use that foam tape with Flex Track. But and the Homa bed that's out there, that's pre-carved. You can buy Homa bed. It looks just like Midwest cork, like we're all used to seeing with the road bed profiles and everything. But it's a Homosote, flexible Homosote strip. I could get behind that. But if you hand lay track, Homosote is really, really, really your friend. Actually, just in general, Homosote is really your friend. That sound deadening properties are hard to beat. What do you use, Andy? Do you use cork?
On the bridge, I used cork. I originally wanted to use the foam.
Yeah.
But I think I was getting cork. I think is what, ½ inch, and I think the foam was 3/8 inch thick.
No, cork is 5/16.
5/16.
And I think the foam is what, a quarter then, or something like that. It's a little bit less.
Yep.
And I think I had a problem with it at the very beginning or something, that I had to actually go with the cork to make the elevations right. But that foam was is what I might use in the future.
Well,
also, like you were talking about, I think you've got to have some. It's a little harder to come by, or a little harder to even make.
That's what I used.
That stuff right there.
The only good thing about Homosote is it holds spikes. That's the only good thing.
No, the absolute spikes are. I could live without that, and there's things that are better for spikes. Like drywall. Drywall is a great road bed material. Just spectacular road bed. It's dimensionally accurate.
Hang on one second. Hang on 1 second here. Andrew, when these two quit arguing, text me and wake me up, please. All right, now y'all go back.
That's Johnny Reb at.
Yeah. This stuff is originally designed for air conditioning trade to wrap pipe with.
Were you going to show it to us?
It's a foam type of material. It's gum backed on one side.
Yeah.
And I have I made myself a special block because it comes that thick, and I put a knife down, so this part here, if I have to do turnouts and so on, this actually adds up to this distance.
Yeah.
If I put this side by side.
So where were you getting that, Ralph? Because I've looked for something like that, like a Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, where around by me, and I have not been able to find any of that.
Where'd you find it, Johnny? Johnny found the U.S. or a U.S. source.
You can probably get this from Amazon, I'll bet.
Yeah, I got the link somewhere to
It's.
And Johnny found a U.S. source for it.
Yeah, I think it was Amazon.
Yeah.
30 feet. It's 1/8 thick. It's 2 inches wide. And it's 30 feet long.
That's what I'm going to use on my staging and Helix and such.
the nice part about it, once you peel the backing off, right now it won't do it because the paper backing's on, but if you want to lay it down, you can actually pull it around corners as you lay it, and it'll bend around corners without kinking.
Yeah, because you can stretch.
Like I said,
it has an elastics property to it. So the outside of the curve that has to extend in length, it will elastic stretch out a little bit.
And you probably get it at a heating and air conditioning supply.
Yeah.
At Amazon,
the whole thing, this whole roll, 30 feet of this stuff, costs $13.
So that's not unreasonable.
It's a far cry cheaper than the stuff that Woodland Scenic sells, which is not gum backed. It's just foam. You have to glue it down. This stuff has a gum backing, and if you are unhappy with the results within a reasonable time, a week or so, you can actually peel it back up and relay it.
And you can stack it up pretty easy too. So if you want to, for a higher mainline profile with dropped sidings and such, it'd stack up fine too. I've heard good and bad things about Woody's foam. I know people who absolutely love it. Phil Wyman, used it.
It's actually thinner. It's actually thinner than this. This is truly 1/8 of an inch thick.
Yeah.
And the Woodland Scenics one, I think, is probably 3/32.
Yeah, 3/32 to a quarter. I think it's a quarter inch.
It's not. It's not a quarter. It's not. No, it's not a quarter.
Okay, if you like two of those up, though, you'd get the same thickness, basically.
This is thicker than Woodland Scenics.
Well, Woodland Scenics, the videos I've seen where people didn't like it, they were in high humidity areas, and the foam just wasn't working for them. I guess it was soaking up the humidity and all.
But the Woodland Scenics one, I bet you the one way you could put it down is with the same way I put my ties down on that bridge is I used Super 77, 3M Super 77.
Yeah, contact cement. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
That's something that a lot of people don't seem like they're using. They all want to put down either the caulk or the mastic or whatever.
I use latex caulking on top of this to put my track on.
Yeah.
And during the time between laying the track and ballasting, I have spikes in the middle of the rails, just to hold it in place. Once I ballast it, I pull those pins out.
But yeah, for me, like I say, it's Super 77. I think a big problem with a lot of that stuff is when you use the caulk and the stuff that comes out of the tube is so thick, and then you get so many variations where with the spray contact cement, you spray it down, you can mask off an area that you don't want it to go. And once you lay down your foam and everything else, you stick. First time it's stuck, so you wouldn't have to worry about it moving with the nails and everything else.
Yeah, I don't know about for you up there, but down here that Super 77 is very expensive stuff.
It is
pretty expensive.
Well, you really don't need the 77. You get the 77, you get the 90, and I think they may even have something a little less. Even Loctite and some of the other stuff is a little bit less expensive. We used to use that out on a job site when we had to do edge banding, on a store.
So there's the fancy tool I made. I made the block of wood. It's exactly 2 inches. I just put a couple of screws to hold a tile knife in place, and I run that block of wood beside the roll of tape as I take it off, and it cuts perfectly. It goes through maybe 2 or 3 layers at a time, and I make it just slightly longer or wider than the ties themselves, and it's straight down. So when I ballast, my ballast forms its own gradient on the sides.
Now that was another problem I see a lot of people with the cork road bed. When I put it down on the bridge, before I laid it down, I set up a little stop so I could just hang off the side of my workbench and then sand the edges so I get more of a rolled edge. And I've seen so many people when they put down the cork road bed where they just tear it, and then you're trying to form something that looks like a nice, ballast on that.
Yeah.
It's next to impossible.
You got to sand it. You got to. That's a. In my opinion, that's a given with cork. Is you got to sand it and smooth all that off to something that gravel would naturally fall in a something.
Okay, so here's the deal. An old guy taught me way back when, go out and buy cork for N scale track.
Sure.
And don't separate it, so that when you separate it, it's got that cut in the middle, so you just reverse the sides. Now you get the angle. Just leave it as it is, and it's straight down the same width as HO ties.
Yep.
And let the ballast just fall on its own.
I've done that before as well, but on the sidings. I used Midwest cork on the main line. I used the N-scale stuff, just like you're talking about on the sidings. And if you use sculpted mold or ground group or something, you can kind of wipe a finger of it down through there to keep you from eating up a lot of ballast. If you're using something that's expensive, you don't make it out of an $8 sack of rock like I do. You can save a little bit by filling that gap in. I don't have a problem with cork functionally, and up until the point that you soak it with glue. I mean, when you start soaking it with glue, cork absorbs the glue and it affects the sound editing properties. And so for some people, that is not going to matter. Probably for a good number of people, how dead sounding the rail is will not matter that much to them. But I like the volume of my locomotive is quite low, and I want to use ambient sounds and all that jazz. So I don't want a lot of unnatural racking. Not to mention foam. I love working with foam, as we all know. But it's not great from a sound properties perspective.
I'll tell you one thing I may try in the future is using foam for the top of a module, and then putting a piece of that 5mm Luan underlayment.
Yep.
Glue it down with that Glidden gripper, and gives you something to nail down your track to. And actually, you could probably form that, with a 45 router bit to actually get in a nice, like you see a lot of the mainline rails where they have that nice tall ballast section.
Luan would probably solve. I watched Ken Patterson lay track right on top of styrofoam, and I love styrofoam. I absolutely love the material, but track directly on the styrofoam, sound properties and off-gassing and deformations aside, it's just so hard to get a correct. You're gonna have dips. It's just too hard to get it dimensionally accurate. But a lot of the guys like the Ken Anderson's group, the Sipping and Switching Society, the North Carolina and Ohio guys, they seem to use Ohio Valley guys or whatever. They use Luan on top of plywood just for road bed. So they're using, it's track on Luan on plywood, and they're not worried about the sound.
But then it's cookie cutter.
It is to do that. I'm curious as to whether I would be if I would like Luan. I still think I would use like that foam tape between the Luan and the track. But the Luan would give you a surface that you could effectively. You'd cut the profiles and everything in the foam, carve it out just like you would normally. Just lay the Luan on top, so you had a solid piece of material to get it to adhere to.
Well, there's my track. This is my gauntlet track, but still, it doesn't really matter. That's my track on that foam, and my ballast is crushed concrete.
Yes, sir. And there's a few commercial ballast fingers out there that I actually like. Arizona Rock and Mineral, Highball, a few of those guys. But most of the commercial ballast out there, I was just not happy with. I mean, with a little modification, add a little stuff to them. They just don't look right to me generally.
Too uniform color.
Yeah, too uniform in every characteristic, and it's just, and it depends on what you model. If you model something that's a freshly, perfectly manicured main line, that's different. But
yes, okay, and that's all fine and dandy. Too uniform. You're saying too uniform, but if you were to stand by the real railroad tracks, the same distance, scale distance that you are from your layout, that stuff that you say on the real railroad is more than one or two colors or whatever, when you're that far away from it, it's uniform.
Now, what I'm using for ballast on the bridge right now is, I think it's Woodland Scenics, but what I've done is I've taken...
If you're blending it...
I'm blending it.
Then it's incorrect.
I'm blending to gray. I think I'm using 2 different colors of gray.
See, that does a better job.
Like in a 2-liter pop bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Roll it around, roll it around, roll it around until I get something that looks fairly decent. So I'm not completely homogeneous color.
Right, having the disparity of colors gives you the ability. It kind of recreates the lighting effect that you get with the little shadows that get cast in it. So even if on the prototype most of the stones of ballast are roughly the same color, if you pick one up individually, but when you look at the layout, you see all the little shadow spots, and we have to model in lighting.
Yeah, so it is a blend, and I can't remember what 2 colors I looked at. I says I got to get some. The light stuff is just way too light. You go to the darker, it's just too dark. So it's
but once you start to add weathering to it, it's going to change.
Yeah. I understand.
So even if it is uniform, you're adding more color to it. And I do it with powders.
Yeah.
I've painted my rail before I put the ballast down. I use Rust-Oleum or the linoleum color of Tamiya. Spray it on, and then I ballast afterwards with the crushed concrete, and it's great stuff. I sift it so that I get a good uniform size.
Yep. Got it too.
And I get when I just go out and get a 5-gallon pail from these places that crush down old concrete to take the rebar out and reuse the steel. So it's not a solid color or one color. It's got rust in it. Oh yeah.
Yes.
With that vibrating machine that knocks it all apart.
I was the guy who got to pull that little pieces of metal out, the last thing on the last screen, and we were probably 100, 150 yards away from Grand Trunk Main Line. I could not hear a train go by. You're like, oh, there's a train.
Yeah. So after I've got all that done, then I come back with my weathering powders. I put black down the center, and I put the rust color up against the rail. So it looks like the rust is bleeding off the sides of the rail into the stone.
Can I airbrush a little bit? I have not found a good way to get my ear of the ballast rudder on the sides, and it's just not a very fine line. And otherwise, if you try to recreate that in the ballast profile, you end up getting, just little white specks here and there. It doesn't look natural. But airbrushing it over with a little bit of a brown, a fairly dilute brown, kind of blended that edge in. It made the cedar not look like perfectly clean black, like I don't want it. It should be dusty and dirty. And then I bring that brown up on the ballast slope a little bit, and that blends that in. Otherwise, I just use powders. But I found airbrushing much better for me.
You might want to refresh, Andy. Your audio's getting a little wavy.
Underwater. It's going underwater.
Is that a U-boat?
Yeah.
That's Johnny Reb.
Yeah. Just tell me when he comes back you have
on the bridge yesterday. Trying to work my way through. Getting it ready for Kansas City.
Oh yeah, right.
That's going to be an interesting adventure.
Mm-hmm. And what modular group are you going to hook up with?
Primo.
Okay. Geez, it's taking an awful long time to refresh, Andy. Come on.
Hey, it's a MacBook. It's a MacBook. What can you say?
Oh, this is
exactly.
This is a stupid Windows computer. But a Windows thing.
So in your era, they would have used cinder from the firebox to add into the ballast.
Well, they used it on the edges of the malice profile to keep down overgrowth, or the undergrowth that approaches the track side. So they poured cinder down the sides of the right of way. It's not mixed in the malice very much. I mean, you'll see that in yards a lot of times. There's cinder mixed in the malice, and they'll patch in spots with cinder, a lot of spots. So when I do yard trackage and such, eventually in the future, I'll patch in cinder. And then there's parts of coal that gets dumped over when they bank the cars together. They spill a little coal. There's little spots of coal. Yard tracks are dirty as crap. Something Miles taught me, and I think it was on a Trademaster's show. I think he was talking about, on the model, we dirty up, and we should. I've said before, the difference in the prototype of the model world is that everywhere humans are, we trash up the place fiercely, especially around railroad tracks. And we don't model that as well. Now, I give Gino a great deal of credit. He does that spectacularly well. Little newspapers and stuff laying between the tracks, like what should be there in a city scene. It should be trash and garbage and piles of cans and crap. But Miles says that when he was working for Southern Pacific, I think it was, if you're walking through between the cars, the area between the tracks is perfectly clear. They throw stuff out of there, but they throw it over between the rails because they don't walk it on the trackage. So they'll put all the garbage and crap between the rails, even in the yard. So we should be throwing more stuff, but the center line of the trackage, more garbage. Glad hands and air hoses and stuff like that.
You gonna model that?
Yeah. When I model a yard, right now I have a small interchange yard, but it's quite rural, and they dropped a few cars here and there. There might be a little bit of garbage that way, but I'm not modeling a yard. What?
That's right after the helix.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Way to go, Andy.
There's not enough room on this layout to model a yard. I mean, if you're designing a track plan, you walk into a room and I say, okay, I'm building a model railroad here. The first thing you should do is figure out where staging could go, in my opinion, or possibly where a yard could go and staging below. Staging is absolutely, in my mind, critical to a decent track plan. Absolutely critical. If you want to, the trains must go somewhere off your world and must come from somewhere out, from off your world. So staging is critical. So you figure that out first. The next thing is where the yard goes, because that's going to be the biggest sacrifice of space that you give up for. And I did not want to give the space up in this room for what I'm trying to accomplish with this helper district, so I don't model the yard. I will eventually. I'll extend this layout, grow this layout in a new space. Since it's Tobin, is modules like this, it can be moved. But I'm not going to model the yard until I can model. I'm about 5 miles. Where I stop modeling is about 5 or 6 miles from the yard. So if I could grow it any at all, it would be to the yard. But that's not necessary. I think if you don't
embrace the modular concept as far as like the free mow and everything else. It's just breaking down your modeling into bite-sized, manageable pieces.
Yep. Mm-hmm. You can get a sense of accomplishment. You got
to realize I came from an industry where you had to do a lot of planning and everything else. We're not happy with our kitchen. Can you redesign it? And even for me, it was trying to come up with a railroad. And like I say, after moving it half a dozen times in 8 years, I enjoy the modular concept.
I would never build a quote-unquote permanent layout again. I don't necessarily think that you need to build it that everybody should build their layouts to a Primo or whatever standard. Actually, I'm inclined against that entirely for a home layout. Maybe incorporate a few modules that have a standard in it, but that center line of the track would be a very limiting factor in a small space. And mine is not portable by any stretch of the imagination. It's movable, which, it takes some delicate treatment, and it may even require some repair after moving. I'm sure it will, but it's movable.
You call your layout permanent?
No, I don't know. There's no such thing as a permanent layout. There's not really. That's why I say quote-unquote permanent. No such thing as permanent layout. A chainsaw will make any permanent layout no longer exist. It was not that permanent then. But the difference is how destructive is the separation of the components, or how destructive would relocation be. In my case, my layout is non-destructive to move. So there has to be a better terminology for that. And TOBA is, when I started this 3 years ago, I had heard Joe Fugate talk about the TOBA concept. But that's exactly what I put together. It's exactly how I decided to do mine. Build so much of the layout, build a few modules at a time. Wasn't in a rush to get continuous running or whatever, which I won't really have anyway. I'm not really in any hurry for any of it. So building modules gave me a sense of gratification. I built these modules. I got trees on them. I've got modules that are doggone near done, and I got modules that pink foam is exposed on a little bit. I don't have much pink foam modules right now. It's just
I've run across. I've helped guys tear apart railroads after they've built them and everything else because they've moved, and it's kind of like, well, I guess that won't get saved, and you throw a lot of work and a lot of money away.
Yeah, Joe Desmond says LDE exclamation point. That was the first inkling I had of this concept. Well, I cut my teeth in model railroading in the early days when David Barrow, Cat Mountain Santa Fe, was building his using he called it a domino layout. Everything he built these frameworks, cut and dry, put them in the room, and then figured out a track plan that worked on top of that. But all he cared about was that he was taking the idea of modularity to the bench work, and then after that, all bets are off. His track work could be whatever. I think TOBA, and then Tony Custer come up with the LDE concept with layout design element, where you could build a small layout that was a passing siding, and you could put staging on both ends, and you could operate it. It would be realistic, prototypical. It could model a specific place and time if you wanted to, but it was just one little spot on the railroad with staging on both sides. And then you could extend, you could separate the staging from the layout. You could build another module and put that on. It was an early predecessor to the TOBA concept, that's just, in my opinion, building in sub-modular fashion. This is my 13th layout. And if I wouldn't have built this, because I plan on building a new house in a few years, I wouldn't have built it. I would have kept waiting and kept waiting and kept waiting until I had that ideal space. And that's my argument for anybody. If you're not where you want to be, if you do not have room for a layout, it's pretty easy to have room for a 2x4, 2x6 module that you can slide under a bed. You can do
like I did
a what?
25-foot 4-inch, 4 5/16 module.
Yeah, that's a little extreme.
But if you think about it, Andy, that is by Fremo standards, that is one module.
Yeah, absolutely, sure. Yeah, it's wood designed.
And the icon that you'll be working on after this, that would be considered one module.
Yeah. And I've got a plan for a couple modules that would have to be put together that will meet the Sipping and Switching Society standards for modules. They can be interfaced, but there'll be a couple modules, 12 or 16 feet long, something in that neighborhood, 12 or 18 feet long, 2 or 3 modules.
The Sipping and Switching standards, and I don't know what they're using as far as a standard for height but they seem what they're doing is they're standardized the width and the length of the module, I believe.
Yeah, they have a track standard too. So they have 2 styles of modules. They have a 30-inch module and what they call a mini module, which is 14 7/8. So you can even put 2 of the mini modules together. And the track arrangement for those is set up in such a way as that you can have a mainline mini module that just have the 2-track mainlines that are at 8 inches from the front and 10 inches. They call them the 8 and the 10 track. And then they have a back track at 21. And you can build a mini module just have that back track, that branch line. Or they also run branch line modules, mini modules and standard modules out away. They'll have a branch diversion module, which the module series that I want to build has a branch line that diverts off from it. It's a 2-track main line going through and a branch module that breaks off, a branch line connection. It's where this branch line that I'm modeling connects to the 2-track Pocahontas district of the Norfolk Western, the big famous 2-track main line that the Class J run 100 miles an hour on. And it's under electric catenary in 1950. And I'm going to put the catenary, and it's got a junction with the tower and all the point rodding and everything for the Armstrong levers in the tower to throw. So I'm going to model it'll be interesting. But I like the Sipping and Switching Society's module. I like the standard A little better. It's a little more flexible. Height-wise, it's 2 inches higher than Primo. I think Primo is 48 and they're 50.
Primo is 50 to the top of the rim.
Okay, then they are either 48 or 52. There's 2 inches difference.
That's the one standard I question about Primo is why 50. Why 50?
How you doing, Pat?
You gotta get your legs in. It's very easy to take a 4 by an 8 foot 2 by 4, 8 foot something or other, cut it in half and be at 48 inches.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Why they chose 50, I don't know.
And with a 48-inch leg and a 2-inch caster, you'd be at 50 with wheels. That's one of the things Sipping and Switching Society guys do is they use foldable table legs with an extension pipe to get them to the right height with casters on it. So every module has wheels, and then they put them in these frames and these end caps that hook a couple modules together facing each other and make a box out of modules to carry them portably. And those have wheels on them, so they wheel it all in. They prop it up, drop the legs down, then they wheel them around. They'll hook a dozen of them together and wheel a dozen of them around. So it makes it quick to set up and work with. I like the idea, and the modules are super light. They'll look at
yeah, I've seen how they build it with it, where they actually take the quarter. I think it's called the 8-inch or quarter-inch loop on, and they just.
Yeah, they do multi-ply.
Actually, I think it's 5 millimeter. It used to always be quarter-inch, but I think they call it 5 millimeter now.
Something like that. They laminate layers of it together.
Depends on if you buy it.
3 pieces thick.
No, it's. I'll tell you, the lumber's got so goofy all over the place. It's kind of like we're kind of imperial and kind of metric and.
Yeah, because now you got the quarters, 4/4, 5/4. Then you got the millimeter, the metric. So it's kind of hard to get it all to match up.
Yep.
Well, when I first started doing carpentry and everything else, if I went and I said I need 3/4 inch AB plywood, I got 3/4 inch. Now you go get 3/4 inch, and it's what a 32nd of an inch.
Yeah, it's 11 30-seconds.
Yeah. So you used to go and you used to buy a dado, or you used to buy a dado blades for your table saw, which would set up right to 3/4, half, 5/8.
Yep.
Nope, you can't do that
Forget
anymore.
that. You have to have a dial one now.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, even when I started building the bridge, I looked and said, oh, man, there's 1/4 inch MDF. It's like 1 or 2 thousandths less than 0.250.
Yep.
I can work with that. So I did the first one, and then I went back to go get it, and I looked, and actually I bought it from Menards, and they have the dimension there. It says, oh, you SOBs. Lean 6 or Lean Sigma 6 or whatever that is. I said, now it's down to like 0.2215 or somewhere, or whatever it is. It says, oh.
Yeah, the change you get is the change you get. Consistency is the key. If you're going back and buying material and it varies so much, that's my only complaint about Homoso, is it is not dimensionally accurate at all. It's got dips and dives, and you really have to work around. It's not a very great surface. That's why I was saying earlier, drywall board or gypsum board makes a great road bed material. Holds spikes spectacularly well. It's not awful for sound properties. I mean, it's not great either, but it's not as bad as plywood or styrofoam directly, and it's perfectly dimensionally accurate. I mean, it is smooth as glass.
Yeah. And it's heavy.
Yes, it's definitely a perfect layout arrangement, or I would generally say it'd be a perfect layout arrangement. But Joey Ricard used it on a portable module. But on that portable module, he built a bunch of wood construction and plaster scenery, and so his fuel bill around, because I know it's got a weight pound. That's not my argument against plaster. It's not the weight. I just don't like plaster. But that is another consequence of plaster, is that stuff's heavy.
Now, when I'm building that octagon, when I get going on that thing, I plan on using that 5 millimeter Luan, or the 1/4 inch Luan for the tops.
Yeah.
The thing is, what I'm doing, I see the big problem with a lot of guys is they build, like, let's say a 4x8, and they're going to say, oh, okay, well, I can put, I'll put a 2x4 every 2 foot. And then I'll buy 3/4 inch plywood. Now you see, I've been building with to make my own wood I-beams, and I'm going every 12 inches on center. And if you think about it, how many 12 inches on center, if you want to go for like a 1% grade, every 8 is 96 inches, which is almost
100, yeah.
Almost a 1% grade. So when I go, if I want to, put a 1% grade on top of it, take a piece of 1/8 inch something or other on the first one, quarter, 3/8. So by even going away from the 16 inches on center down to 12 inches, I'm thinking I can get away with a lot less thicker top. I'll pick up the structural strength, and I'll keep it a lot lighter.
Well, and you just don't need. I mean, my argument in favor of my styrofoam is that it's all about how you build layouts. When people built layouts that were 36 inches off the ground or 40 inches off the ground, and you built them 3 feet or 4 feet deep off the wall, I've seen many layouts years ago that were 3 feet off the wall, all the way around.
2x4, and you can put your car on top of it.
That's right, but you needed to climb on it. You needed to climb on it. You needed to put it needed to be more structurally sound.
Why did you need to climb on it?
Today, my layout's at 60 inches off the ground. It's on a transitional grade, but 60 inches off the ground. It's quite narrow. I wouldn't need to climb up there. I couldn't climb up there. I don't need the layout to support my fat butt. I just need it to hold a 2-pound locomotive up. And you could build the thing out of cardboard. It would be fine.
I got a question from BNSF 1982. He's asking, will the drywall sag after a while? That depends on how you support it.
You'd have to put it on. So you'd have to
12-inch centers. Otherwise, it will sag.
I would not treat it as the sub-road bed. I'm calling it road bed to put track on. You would have to put either plywood under it, or what I would recommend doing is putting a material running vertical. Put 2 pieces vertical like a spline, but put your risers up, put your drywall on top, and then put 2 pieces of material down, glue 2 pieces of blackboard insulation. That's what I like to use for that. Just glue those vertical members underneath it. You'll get plenty of support that way. We built the layout, the permanent club that I was a member of when I was a teenager. All the road bed was built out of that blackboard insulation used on the exterior of houses.
I forgot what they used to call that stuff.
I was trying to remember that too. There's a couple initials for it, but blackboard insulation. It's a 1/2 inch thick. It's fuzzy and it's messy, so it's Homosote. It has sound deadening properties similar to Homosote. It does not hold spikes worth a darn, but if you're gluing your track down, and I put my, speaking of contact cement, we were talking about a minute ago, I hand lay my track with contact cement. So I don't need the spike. All I care about is the sound properties. And blackboard has nice sound properties. And what we did is stuck risers up, cut the blackboard for the road bed profile that we were going to do, and we're stuck risers up, got the grade right. And yes, it's sagging everywhere. And then we had used a couple 2 or 3 inch strips of blackboard, and we just stuck them up between the risers, glued them in, clamped it in, let it set up. And I was a member of the club for about 4 or 5 years through my teenage years. I went to the military, and it was around for another 10 years, 15 years before it burnt. And to my knowledge, every time I went and visited, it was still just as solid as the day we built it. And all the road bed was built out of $4 a sheet. It's more expensive now. Thank Katrina for that. But now it's probably $10 a sheet or $8 a sheet. But it's dirt cheap. I mean, by comparison, and Luan, that's another benefit to Luan is, and it's not about economy all the time. I'm in favor of buying quality stuff, but if you can get the quality, dimensional accuracy, good roadbed profiles where your trains will run well, not uncoupled, not derail, if you can get there and save the money to buy locomotives or whatever.
Another nice thing about Luan that I'm liking, what a lot of guys don't realize is you take a lot of the plywoods, and of course everybody's going to buy the CDX, which has voids in it. And on top of that, if you look at the grain of the plywood, you got light grain and you got some dark grain in there. That's the difference between summer growth and winter growth. Now you try to drive a little spike in the winter growth, which is usually your darker one, and you're going to bend, quite often you're going to bend that spike over. When using the Luan, since it's a mahogany, it's a very fine grain. I've very seldom had a problem, putting a spike into it.
What'd you say it was? What kind is it? Did you say it was mahogany?
I believe it is. It's
a real cheap form of mahogany.
Yes, I believe it's a Philippine mahogany.
Huh. I
There's a
love
couple
mahogany.
different mahoganies, but I believe that's what it is.
Yeah, it's probably a blonde mahogany since Luan's usually white.
Yeah, I haven't think mahogany anyway, cosmetically. I just love mahogany. It's a beautiful wood.
Well, you got different colors of mahogany,
But that stuff has been used for underlayment for Christ, as far back as I can remember. And it was always inexpensive.
Yep, inexpensive, and it's quite knockoff smooth, quite dimensionally accurate. It's going to give you a nice smooth surface to work with, smoother than, unless you're buying, 3/4 birch plywood, you're not. And I've seen plenty of people buy $60 a sheet plywood to lay for roadbed. I just wasn't bored with the JP Morgan fortune, so I don't opt for birch. But
with the I-beams that I've been making,
yep,
I buy 3/4 inch birch plywood for my top and bottom cord, and then I even make my rips for my fascia. I'm using the fascia as a structural part of the module.
But the way you're cutting that stuff, if you're doing cookie cutter roadbed out of birch, like I see people do, the amount of waste that you have out of a $60 sheet of plywood is just, you want to sit down and cry about it. The way you're making that material, there's no waste out of a piece of birch, and you're getting a lot of framing members out of a single sheet of that stuff.
I originally, when I started making those I-beams, I was using the Luan for the center cord. And the only reason I was doing that is because I didn't know whether if a typical curve on a table saw blade is an 1/8 inch, and I thought being 5mm versus an 1/8 of an inch, it would be too loose. Now actually I'm finding out that I can get saw blades that are just a little under the 1/8 of an inch, so I can actually get it in there nice and tight.
Yeah, that's a key.
I could probably even save some more money if I take it down to the 1/8 inch masonite.
Actually, Andrew, if you your saw blades, if they're carbide tipped,
yep.
If you take when you have them sharpened, ask them to grind the sides down to where they're a little thinner.
Yep. When I started making some of that stuff, I was over at my brother-in-law's house, and we have a CMT combination blade, and that actually is a little bit under 1/8 of an inch, so I could center it, run it one way, turn around, and run it back the other way. And I get a good snug fit with the 5mm Luan.
Mm-hmm.
But since it's under it is under 1/8 of an inch, I could probably even get down to the point of using the 1/8 inch masonite instead. I don't know if there's a big weight savings or not, but I know that there's $1 savings.
Yeah. And now masonite has a bit more flexibility in it. The Luan's pretty flexible too, but Luan is flexible with the construction. Like it'll twist in a certain direction, but not very well in another direction. Masonite will, be in the
but masonite, the way he's doing it, turning up on the edge, will be structural sound. You're not going to get the deflection.
Yeah.
5 mil is actually bigger than 1/8 of an inch.
Is it?
Yep. It's like 3 mil maybe.
I think that's what they're advertising is 5mm when I go to either Home Depot or Lowe's.
Your moth is back, Andy.
I'm not disputing it, but I believe that's the way that they are advertising it.
I just saw the moth fly by your camera.
Yeah, they're driving me crazy. I've been swatting at him for a minute, but
what you need is one of these, Andy.
Oh, we have a cat, so we have those.
No.
That's how
okay, so one of these with some rubbing alcohol.
I got that.
You will never miss another bug.
I got
Can you get them drunk first and let them fall to the ground?
Well, they can't breathe once they get the alcohol on their ass end.
Yeah, I just went and picked up a sheet of masonite today. $7.11 for a 4x8 sheet. If you break that down to a square inch, you're less than a penny a square inch.
Yeah. Is it smooth both sides, or you got rough on one side?
I got it rough on one side because I'm going to use it for fascia.
Okay.
I got to get the rough on one side from Home Depot. That I can use for fascia because the glue will adhere to that much better than the smooth both sides.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm going to use the masonite for making the I-beams, then I may get the 1/8 inch smooth both sides, which I get that from Lowe's.
And that ends up just a touch thinner than the standard masonite.
Yep.
So that might fit your kerf even better.
It might.
Now, Ralph, you got Andy running around the house with a spray ball.
I bought a hut on the hut.
What a thing. Look at there.
Get him. Sick him, Andy. Sick him.
Oh, jeez, look at that. He's using a funnel.
Yeah, I gotta put it this thing right here.
Is your hand that shaky that you can't pour it directly into the bottle?
Yeah, I could have poured it that directly in the bottle. I'm not that shaky, but alcohol dries off the funnel in a second. Throw it down. You have to wash it or clean it up or nothing. Now where you at, sucker?
He's gone. Now that you went and got the bottle, he's gone.
Oh yeah.
That's guaranteed. Until you rest.
Same thing with cats. The cats will do all kinds of stuff, scratch and so on. As soon as you go get the bottle, the cats disappear. They never come back.
Yeah, we put a bottle in basically every room, and all you have to do is like shake it at them. Done.
Yeah.
We just got one cat, but all you got to just shake it at her. She's over whatever mischief she was into.
Yeah, we put water in it. The dogs don't like it.
Yeah, water's for the pets, of course.
Yeah, it's just water.
It's just that the moth is not a pet for Andy. At least not yet.
I don't know.
No.
He hasn't captured it yet, so he hasn't had a chance to talk to it.
I haven't named it yet.
Mothra.
The moth whisperer.
No, Mothra. Remember from Godzilla?
No.
Yeah, they had the moth, and that was Mothra. Mothra.
Okay. Well, gents, I will return. I have to go and put the dog and cat to bed and give them their meds.
All right, well, come on back to the chat room. We'll be done here.
Alrighty. Talk to you guys later. Take care.
All right, Ralph.
All right.
Appreciate you coming in.
Everybody out there, have a good night.
Oh, he's up to something.
Oh, I just missed the chance to tell Ralph he was wrong before he left. I was a little slow on the draw.
Oh, you'll catch him in the chat room and carry it on further.
That's right.
Yeah, Hillbilly, it's been going pretty strong, but yeah. Kept trying to say hey to you, but
Who's that?
Hillbilly Railroad, Scott.
Oh, hey, Scott.
He's been in here.
Yeah, I've got to see him lately.
Yeah, when y'all talking about the layouts being modular and all, he said that he sells his house, the layout stays.
Yeah, that's the problem, and for some people that's not a problem. But you know, and even if I knew I was going to be here, I would still like it to be removable without being so destructive, so that it could be sold or given away to somebody if something happens to me, or when something happens to me, the wife can get rid of it fairly. It's just modular is just everything I can think of, and modular has a connotation of being portable. So I try to not use that. Sectional. It needs to be sectional.
Like I say, I went modular after spending like 15 years in building auto show displays. You know, and what went into all those things and some of the tricks and little tips and everything else I learned there, I'm trying to pass them on. I think that's, to me, it's you'll be a much. I firmly believe you'd be a much more complete modeler.
Well, here's my opinion on just about everything in life. This is not always the case, but and don't worry, I'm not getting too deep. You know, this is not Andy the philosopher or nothing. But if people do something and never change that, when they do it, they're happy. So this is going to make Windows people mad, but Apple people or people who carry iPhones just about won't consider changing to anything else. At this point, they are committed to being. I am an Apple person. I am committed to Apple. You do not see many people that once they go Apple, they ever go back to Windows. They just won't go back on it. You see people that way about cars. Once they buy a certain type, you know, there's people who buy Volkswagens that just won't go back. But there's plenty of people who don't. So in some areas, I would say that about DCC. Here's the best testimony you can give about DCC. Tell me a model railroader who went to DCC and ever sold it and went back to DC. Give me an example of first who did. That's the sales pitch for DCC right there. Everybody who uses it, the wide gamut of people and their technical proficiencies or incompetencies with technology, and everybody who's went to DCC, pretty much, has stuck with DCC. That's what I would say about modular railroading. Everybody who builds a layout in modules, whether that's a quote-unquote permanent layout or modules to take out to a show, anybody who's went modular, went to sectional layouts, to TOBA or LDE or whatever, don't go back.
And you know, the other thing is that when I started going to modular, I kind of look back and I said, when I first got into modeling, I'm trying to remember what was the first Walters catalog I got, and I think it was all maybe about a 1/4 inch thick.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You look at it, it was kind of like you used to have to go up to the hobby shop and, hey, can you order this for me? Oh yeah, I'll get it. I'll get that order placed in Walters, and
yep.
A couple weeks later you find it comes in. Now with what we've got available to us, it's kind of like it's, you know, guys change their minds so quick on everything. Oh, this is the newest, latest. I got to change that and move this out and everything else. By going modular, it says I can continue working on something till it's done.
Or you can replace a module without having to take your layout down.
I'll tell you right now. I mean, a couple of things when I'm getting into that octagon one with that junction. I plan on building a couple of leg modules.
Of what modules?
Leg, where I just put a leg on it. The way I build things is I can take that sucker out of the railroad and I can take it over to the workbench, plop it up on its side, work on wiring. I can sit down, you know, on a stool or something and do scenery, do buildings, whatever it takes. I don't need to be right at the railroad.
Right.
But when it comes to the leg section, I'm thinking of building one of the leg sections about a foot. I think it was, if I remember right, about a foot or 2 foot wide. And what I'm planning on doing with that is putting like a 6-lane interstate highway underneath it.
Oh yeah, okay. I get what you're saying now. That makes
so it's like a mini module, but it's with one purpose in mind: a 6-lane interstate highway with the railroad crossing over it.
Well, that's the big thing that I see with the modular guys is they can take on tasks that are much bigger than the guys building permanent layouts that won't give up spaces. They're building industries that are quite large because they dedicate space to it. And even guys who use modules much like I do for a permanent layout that's permanently set up at their house all the time, you've got guys that have decided with this module, or these series of modules is focused to this area. You see people, it tends to be these guys who are building these more modern style layouts. And most of these guys who are building modern-ish or modern construction methods, I mean modeling any era out there, are guys who are doing a lot like what I'm doing, because I took my ideas from what I was seeing in the hobby. These guys who are trying to model whatever space they've got to model in, they are modeling a much smaller area. I remember, years ago, look at all the layouts we used to look at, Alabama or whatever that we were fond of, Alan McClellan, Tony Custer, those guys. They had a 250-foot main line, and it was an entire division of a railroad, supposedly. It was yard to yard. Nowadays,
that was back in the days before people moved.
Yeah, but you got these guys building these layouts now that are quite large railroads, and they're recreating 5 miles of the prototype. They're recreating one town or something like that.
All right, we got one question here, and we'll finish the show up on that. This is BNSF 1982. Does anyone have any info on a AR1? It will work one way, but when it comes back around, it shorts and I can't figure it out. All right, tell you what you do. First off, go back and read the instructions, because one time I wired up an AR1 and I didn't fully read the instructions and didn't catch it, but I had it wired wrong. It looked right, but it was wrong. Another thing is, since you're using that on a loop, this may not be the best drawing, make sure you do cut insulating gaps for the train to go around, and the AR1 hooks up right there on those insulating gaps. So
I think what you're looking at, Johnny, is you need to be able to get the entire locomotive consist on a block.
Yeah, the train has to fit in between your two isolations. You cannot have it crossing the isolation.
And you could, if you use plastic wheel sets, it won't matter. But if you use metal wheel sets, you'll flip that AR out if it's throwing while metal wheel sets are bridging the gaps. So you either have to put the entirety of the train in there, or you at least have to get the locomotives. And if you just get the locomotives in the loop or whatever, then you need to cut the rail in 2 spots and leave a little dead section between them, so that a single metal wheel, as it's rolling around, cannot bridge that gap. But I would recommend just make it long as the train. And normally, the symptom you're saying where you get the correct reversing effect when the train's traveling one direction and don't get the correct, you get a short when it's traveling the opposite direction. One of the output feeder wires is reversed. It'll work one way when the polarities are matching, and it won't work the other. You've got an output wires. Just flop those 2 output wires, and you should be in theory safe, I think. But if you'll come in and have a regular hangout, we'll look at it with you. Try to help.
Alrighty. Well, I guess we'll wind this one up. We're almost at an hour 10. So let me see what's going to happen here when Alright, Brian said BNSF, make sure that the DCC command station is set to quarter second. Digitrax is 1/8 by default, and it trips the short before the AR1 can act. Yeah, that's true too. You got to check your timing on your command stations.
Or your PM42, depending on what breaker you're using. The PM42 could be too sensitive, and it'll kick out before.
Yeah, if he's using a breaker.
Yeah, that is true. And the same thing with lighted cars too. If you have a train full of lighted cars and they cross both gaps at the same time, you'll confuse it and then cause yourself a dead short.
Yeah, lit cars, even metal wheels will do that bridging problem. That's why your safest bet, and on a loop, that's not a problem, because if you're leaving a turnout and going back around, you've got to clear, the train has to clear that turnout before the train can go through anyway, because of the obstruction problem. Where reversing loops get really complicated are Ys. Ys can get, or 2-track main lines like dog bones that have crossovers. Both of those are weird wiring arrangements. They're totally solvable. Yeah. There's easy solutions to it, but you have to kind of think out of the box to do it.
Well, the way he wrote that up, I'd assume he was just doing a simple loop. And Pat, you're right. He is using a PM42. So, yeah, 1982. You need to go in and reset the timing on the PM42. If you got everything wired right. Because the PM42 would trip, see the short before the AR can react. So you have to set the timing longer on the PM42.
You might also get away with, on the AR1, there's a pod you can adjust. You may get away with giving it a little bit of adjustment and just like massage it back and forth till you find the sweet spot, depending on what your locomotive is, a sound decoder versus non-sound decoder. That could also be a quick remedy if your wiring and everything is correct and you don't want to play with the PM42, with the CVs and that.
Yeah, I was just, my inclination was if it's working correctly one way and not the other, it's normally a polarity issue.
Yeah, yeah.
But that timing issue could be a real stickler. And really, honestly, anybody setting those up really ought to tweak those timings a little bit anyway.
Yeah, he said he's got sound. So, just a matter of playing around, like Andy said. Check your polarity and then check your timing on those and see. So, we'll go back to the splash screen again. And we're going to roll into it just any moment now. I love this delay that YouTube puts in here. This thing kills me. Of course, this isn't far off either. Alright, there it goes. Alrighty. Well, we'll go ahead and wind this one up. Appreciate everybody coming in. Don't forget, we got the Fine Scale show on Thursday of this week. That's going to be with Andy, Miles, Ralph, and Miles has brought in a guest. They'll be talking about LED lighting on the layout. So that's going to be an interesting show. That show is going to air at 8:30 or 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. So because it is a Thursday, but these people go to bed early, so we're doing the early show. So don't come in at 10 o'clock or you'll be at the end of the show. So it'll be 8 Central, 9 Eastern for a Thursday night show only. Then we'll be back.
That's going to be a really good one.
Huh?
That's going to be a really good show as well. So I'd really, any of us that are interested in layout lighting, there's been a lot of talk about that in our community. This guy is very, very, very well informed about it. So it'll be really good. If you guys can watch and chime in the chat, of course, probably get a lot of great questions answered.
All right, then June the 19th is Who is Big Bill Talking To? That'll be a week from today. He's going to have Ron Perry on. June the 20th will be Into the Locomotive with Joe Desmond. And then the week after, which is the 26th, will be Who is Big Bill Talking To? And that's going to be a 3-rail O-scale show. So that's going to be interesting too. Well, with that said, hope y'all can, I know it's raining here for me, so I'm trying to stay dry. Not doing too good a job of it, but anyway. Y'all have a good night. We'll see you Thursday night for the Fine Scale build. Y'all have a good evening.